making sure the sketches I'm doing aren't sitting around.
So I don't have a fancy opening like some of those guys. So everybody, welcome to episode 5 of That's So Sketchy. It sounded funnier when I named it, and now every time I have to say it, it's just like, oh, I don't know about that one. So um, why don't we give it a few minutes just so we get maybe 2 or 3 eyeballs in here
Sure.
before we do the sort of introduction. Goal here is, I guess it's also being recorded, so I can do that at any time. Um, Today we're going to be talking mostly about Spider-Man Metal, but want to also talk about my guest here, Seth Ismart. So Seth is probably one of the few double threats I know in that he is both a sketch card artist and a collector. And I would say collector with a capital C, as opposed to someone who dabbles. Seth is, if you do that chant, one of us, one of us. So please, Seth, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Seth. I've been working on sketch cards since about 2013, and I've collected all kinds of collectibles, whether it's Star Wars collections, movie props, that kind of stuff. Got into drawing sketch cards, and then from there, and I'd collected too in the 1990s with the Marvel Universe, like a lot of us did. And then once I started drawing the sketch cards, then I started buying more sketch cards, and just I spend way more money on sketch cards than I do making sketch cards. So
It's a vicious cycle, I'm
it
sure.
is, it is, it
Yeah,
is.
I can't even fathom being able to make my own. Are you a tough critic of yourself?
Um, yeah, definitely. I could see improvement from when I first started and looking at different. I remember looking at different artists, and I was like, oh, I like the way they do this, or I like their line work, or I like their color. I went to art school, and so yeah, I definitely say I'm a critic. And there's times when I'm like, oh, I feel sorry for the person who gets this sketch card, and there's other ones where I'm like, oh, this is a really nice set. Like there's a lot coming out that I'm really proud of. But yeah, I definitely try to improve every day. And like I said, I look at a lot of other artists and try to see what they do that I like and try to incorporate that in some of my artwork too.
Now, you mentioned sets that are upcoming. How many sets right now are sort of in the pipe for you that you've submitted cards for?
Uh,
And obviously, we can't say the names of them, so just
goodness,
quantities.
goodness, like I can't even fathom. Like currently, I know I'm working on 5 different sets. Um,
So not even submitted, just
Not
actually
even
working.
submitted yet. There's 5 different sets. There's literally years worth of artwork that are backlogged. Um, I'd probably say another 5 or 6 sets that are still in the pipeline, and who knows when they come out. And I literally did the sketches probably years ago, and you can see the difference. I recently went back and looked at my cards that haven't even been released yet, and compared to my cards that I'm doing now, and you can see improvement. And I'm like, oh, well, that's they're going to come out now, and it doesn't even represent really what I'm doing at the moment, I guess.
So 878, thank you for the comment. Happy Saturday to you too. So that's interesting. So they could theoretically release some of your newer work before your older work, and
That's
sequentially, people might say, "Wait a minute,
okay.
these are going sort
Lagging.
of backwards in
I'm
time."
lagging. Somebody's
Oh,
lagging.
you look fine on mine.
Okay, I lost. Oh, I got you back now.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely, that's happened where sets have come out that are not sequential for sure, for sure. So,
Fun stuff. All right, well let's
but yeah, there's some nice ones coming out too. I'm looking forward to them. I'm looking forward to seeing more of my uh, the Fleer Avengers sketches, and I haven't seen any of the lore sketches. And I've picked up some boxes too, but I haven't seen a lot of my sketches. I did 2 batches of lore, I guess,
oh,
um,
2 rounds. All right.
2 rounds. So there's a lot of them in there. Um, so yeah, I'm looking forward to when that comes out on EPAC and trying to see what's gonna happen. Yeah, that's an old one.
I know. So I figured before we jump into Spider-Man Metal, I think you are already aware I'm a fan of yours with a few sketches. So I thought we'd do a quick little, I guess
Sure.
almost a retrospective
Which,
through
which,
my
which,
collection.
which set is it? I know it's a Rittenhouse set. Which one is
So
that?
that's, I believe, Divas 2.
Oh, yeah, one of my first sets.
Yeah,
Because
it's
my
either
first set
Divas.
was Greatest Battles was my first set for
Oh,
Marvel.
all right.
Or any set, actually.
Yeah, so these are, I tried to get them in chronological order. It didn't work because of my naming convention. So we'll sort of jump way ahead to 2017 here. A little.
Okay, that was my first Upper Deck set.
Oh, all right. Very nice. We'll go back in time now to, was this Marvel 75th?
Okay, yeah.
Get a little Apocalypse.
Some of them I don't even remember doing. I'm like, yeah, I remember that one.
Colossus and Juggy.
I remember
These are
doing
some of
those.
my favorite that you did, the cover
I'm
box
I'm
recreations.
I'm such a fan of Bill Sinkovich. So back then I did a lot of reproductions, and I really like his artwork.
Little Gene. Wow, we're still in Marvel 75th, aren't we? I guess I have a few from here. Another one.
A funny, interesting story about the reproductions. I did some for Black Diamond, but I don't know where they went. And I did a lot of.
You've never seen any of them.
My name wasn't on the list. I asked what happened to them. I have no idea. I think I did about 20. I did the ones with the characters on them, and then 10 of these. And then I got a notification about exact reproductions were now no longer allowed. So maybe it had something to do with, I try to make them as close as as close as I can to the artist when I'm doing reproductions. And I like that challenge. And I did some for Black Diamond, but I think they didn't want to go that route anymore. And then you're supposed to put your own flair to it instead of an exact reproduction. So I think that was probably one of the reasons why. Just a theory.
That's terrible.
Don't know. But they just disappeared. So I never got to answer what happened to them.
Hey, Brittany. So guest is Seth, artist and collector, Seth Ismart. So welcome. Wow, that's I can't even fathom the frustration to do work like that.
I was a little frustrated because I love these. I love doing these, and I really put. And I had a short amount of time to do the Black Diamond set too. That was during COVID, but I really enjoyed doing those. And like I said, I love Bill's artwork. So I was like, then.
And what's funny is people absolutely love those recreations. In fact, just today, someone else started a cover recreation appreciation thread in MCCW.
Okay.
So people still love them. I mean, another one.
I love doing them. I did that one for you. That took a lot of time.
Oh yeah, I think that's coming up in here. Nice double one here.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Good old Wolvie. I'm assuming he's fighting the hand based on.
Yeah, he's just getting beat up, I think.
Yeah, not having a good day.
Not having a good day.
Now you wouldn't be able to do this these days, right? Because of the violence.
I don't think so. There's a lot, and sometimes that you don't even know why cards get disapproved. Like there's not that one. I would know why because it's a little bit blood and stuff like that showing. But there's other times where I've had no idea artist proofs and like you think you follow all the rules, but something's a little off. So yeah, that one would not get approved.
A little classic cover recreation there, right?
I actually pulled on ePack and traded to you.
Yep. Now, how often have you pulled your own cards? Because you are a fairly
for Marvel, that was the only one. For the Hobbit, really? I bought a lot of the Hobbit, and I know you're a huge Hobbit collector as well. And I did quite a few cases of, I think I did like 20 cases of Desolation of Smog, and I pulled a bunch of my cards from there. But for Marvel, that's the only one. I like that one. That was my favorite one from the 80th.
Yeah, no, I love the Imperial Guard. You don't see them enough, I think. So
I haven't seen a whole lot of these. I only did for that set. I only did the portrait. A few of those tiny. They were tiny. They were very
Yeah,
small.
they were tiny, and they always did a terrible job at cropping them. So most of them, you don't even see the artist signature.
If they, yeah, I remember looking back at the contract, and they were like thumbnails basically. They were, didn't even give you the exact size, like a 2.5 by 3.5 card to draw on and say within this artwork. You got a tiny card, so it was tough. That was definitely a challenge.
There we go.
That one took me like a year to do, like literally.
And this one, for anyone who doesn't know, now this is an oversized Rittenhouse AP, which was I think 3.5 by 5 inches. So yeah, there
But it was a fun one. It was definitely a challenge, that's for sure.
I can show you. Here's the difference between the two of them: a regular sketch and what the oversized looks like, in case people aren't familiar. What I like about those two things, first of all, more space, awesome. But the beautiful thing about these older Rittenhouse ones is, since they don't have the license, I think there's a little more artistic freedom in what you can do with them.
Yes, there for sure is.
So we got one or two more. Yet another cover recreation. I'm starting to notice a theme here.
You got a lot.
This is actually one of my favorites from you. I just, it's just so simple.
Alan Davis, I believe, is the original artist. Yeah.
Yep.
Davis. And I remember reading his. I was a big comic book collector when I was a kid, and I liked his artwork, and I remember that issue real well.
Yeah, no, I think as far as ages and collecting ranges, I think you and I overlap a lot, and we obviously share
we definitely do.
Big love of the New Mutants, and then a couple more.
That was
Women of Marvel. These were some really nice puzzles.
I did like doing those puzzles, and I'd had a little bit more time as far as like in figuring out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to set up cards, and I guess back then. Rittenhouse did give you a good amount of time to actually draw the sets, so you weren't trying to pump them out quite as fast. So you could do a lot of neat backgrounds, just a lot with the cards. So, and they were different too in the sense when you drew the sketch cards, they were actually you draw them and then they were cut down. So whereas Upper Deck they give you the 2.5 by 3.5 cards and that's it. Upper Rittenhouse were always oversized and trimmed down afterwards, so it was different.
Oh, so that must have made it quite a challenge to line these up then.
Well, no, so for like the puzzles, they were one card, oversized, and they had like no one's gonna see if I draw on my screen, but they're like one big card, and so you kind of knew where the cut was gonna be, so you drew the image. And then you gave it to them, and then it go, I guess, to whoever the cutters or whatever, and they would trim it down and cut the card to 3.5. So you had an idea where the cards are, and that's how they always did it. I haven't worked for them in years, so I don't know if they still do it that way, but that's how they did it.
Yeah, that sounds like they're definitely adding some complexity. Probably my absolute top from you, though. Obviously, subject matter near and dear to both of our hearts.
Yes, I'm a huge New Mutants fan for those people that don't know. So I have a lot of the original artwork, New Mutants, and cards and that kind of thing. So that's definitely one of my focus, New Mutants.
Yeah, I mean, between Danny and the storyline and Sienkiewicz, I mean, just a perfect combination for that time frame. Got some, who's that? Landra, Deathcry, and Deathbird, right?
Right. No, Shi'ar. I think they're great. They're pretty aliens with the birds and the colors, and I really, really enjoy them a lot. A lot of them. And I did one of the sets. I did, I think, just about all Shi'ar. Forget what set it was. An Upper Deck set, and I was like, I decided I'm going to do all Shi'ar characters. And I did a bunch.
Oh, and then you can tell these are my oldest ones because they're scanned in much smaller.
Little Firestar.
All right, so I think the next two are all small, so we'll jump out of that. And
sure.
Yeah, I know. Brittany is definitely a fan of your work here. Yeah, Brittany, you should definitely look up Seth. His cards are still available. Like he said, he's got a couple more sets coming out. Quite a few coming out.
Yeah, quite a few sets coming up eventually. the way they're coming out and the timing, it'll probably be, if I stop now, it'll still be years down the road. There'd still be some cards coming out. So
And just going back in the comments, Spider Cave, thanks for stopping in. Appreciate it. All right, well let's talk Spider-Man Metal. I mean, obviously with the title of my show, my focus is on the sketch cards, but a fortunate side effect of having you here is you were a big fan of the set broadly, not just sketch cards, right? So
yes, I actually, I mean, although I draw sketch cards, my focus is definitely not sketch cards. There's one artist, a couple artists, I guess, but mainly I PC Andre Toma. I love his artwork, always have. I have a ton of his sketches. So when I'm buying sets, and I get heavy into sets, I definitely don't look for the sketch cards. When I get like a big money sketch, I'm excited in the sense that I could trade it for something else that I want. But in general, I don't look for the sketches, but definitely got heavy into Spider-Man Metal for sure.
Quick question that came up. Are you on Instagram?
No, just on Facebook. I don't. I mean, you know it. I do the sets for fun, so I don't really advertise a whole lot. And but in fact, I have tons of artist proofs, and I never do them just because I don't have time. But it just so I don't have Instagram. Some people on the group are friends with me on Facebook, and every once in a while I'll post some stuff up on my Facebook page. And a lot of my friends and people from business have no idea that I even do art, So, but yeah, it's my Facebook page, and sometimes on the MCCW I post a few cards up here and there that I've done.
And then, so quick sidestep. Now, you are also. Is it okay to talk about what you do in real life?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're also a teacher, I believe, right?
Yes, I own a martial arts school, so that's what I do for a living. Just from, I guess, for background, I went to art school, got an art education degree. I was showing my artwork at comic book conventions, that kind of thing. I had a lot of promising things going that way, and then I had some job offers to teach in the county where I grew up, but I also was teaching martial arts as a job, and so I decided to open up my own martial arts school instead, and been here ever since. And then once things started went well with the school, I had a lot of free time, and like I said, I collected things a lot, and then I looked into Rittenhouse, and Rittenhouse was doing trade cards called Farscape, which side note, just real quick, I have the biggest Farscape collection of props and costumes that exists. And so,
really, okay.
Yes. So that's my other love is Farscape. In fact, auction houses have me authenticate props and costumes from the show Farscape. But anyway, yeah. So that's my one of my other big collections. But so in the season 3 of the Farscape, they had sketch cards in it, and I said, oh, I could do those easy. And Warren Martinek was the art director, or the person you go through. So I looked on the Rittenhouse webpage, and then it said, oh, you can send in some samples. So I sent in to Warren, and he gave me some pointers, and eventually I started with Rittenhouse. So that's basically how I ended up doing it.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I was familiar with the show. I watched it a little bit because I think it was on, going way back, the Sci-Fi Channel before it was Sci-Fi.
1999 to like 2003.
Yeah. And who was, because I was an autograph collector back then.
Okay.
And I seem to remember Claudia Black was one of the big ones.
Ben Browder was the lead, Claudia Black.
Yep. And Gigi Edgley, who, the only reason I remember who she was is there's a local Comic-Con like 2 towns over, and it's one of those like, mid to lower tier ones. So
yeah, she's definitely always.
Yeah, and she was at the last one. She was the big draw at the last one. So
yes,
it's kind of cool. So yeah, why don't we maybe we can sort of alternate between a sketch card and I know you've got a few things from your own collection we can talk about.
Oh sure, absolutely. I brought whole box.
Nice. All right. I'll just start with, he's been sitting here the whole screen. Good old, Mr. Boring Cyclops. This one's Alan Janata. Um, you know, this one, I mean, what stands out to me is sort of the color.
Color. Yeah.
And I'm always impressed. I decided, just because I was curious how all this worked, I picked up some Copics back in the
Okay.
day, and I would play around trying to draw, and just getting these things to not run, like the level of control you need, like with, I usually use the chisel tip end just because I can get much more control about that. But
Uh-huh.
seeing how you guys just use like the brush end,
Yeah,
and
I
how
just
you
use the brush.
just to keep the colors from running, and although I finally, after like 2 years of playing around, I finally learned a trick to keep it from running, which is don't leave the cap on the top. I
Okay.
don't know, maybe that's just because I'm doing it wrong, but it worked for me. But
If
I
you
mean, I'm impressed by little things, and just having done that, just seeing these different layers of sort of, how he's doing the blends of the colors, and you can sort of see that there. I gained a whole new appreciation for the coloring process, I think, just
the
by playing
supply
around with
the
this.
supplies you use make a huge difference because I didn't even know anything about Copics and I was just using whatever. And then after doing more research as I was starting to make, hey guys, um, making more cards and some, Copics are what you're supposed to use. And then, not supposed to use, what a lot of people use, I should say. Um, and then I really liked how they worked. And I use the multi-liners to stop it from running. So that my process is I go through the black first, and then the colors can go right up to that black, and they'll stop that way. But yeah, Copics make a huge difference for me. Other people used, I know, uh, uh, Andre Tomo. Going back to him, I know he uses watered down acrylics, I believe, for
To
his
get
product.
that sort of pastel look that he
Yes,
has.
I believe that's, and I've talked to some artists too. Like I've talked before to see how they do different things. But Mitch Ballard is another guy that I like, and I really like how he inks things. So I actually reached out to him and asked him what he uses to ink. I haven't went and tried it, but I definitely did ask him because I wanted to try to emulate that because I like his inking style.
Nice. No, definitely a Mitch fan. I think I've got one or two in the set coming up a little later. Nate here, True Blue Collectibles. Have you seen? I'll do a little plug for Nate for all four people who are watching. He and Retroverse Cards are doing next weekend a 24-hour mental health live stream called Mental Gone, where they're doing it to raise funds for the Wounded Warrior Project. So I don't know if you haven't seen that; it's definitely worth checking out. These guys are going to be online streaming for 24 hours straight. I'm going to stop by for an hour at some point there. So definitely some cool stuff there. I see everybody in the chat. I know that they know Nate and they all know what's going on, but some info for you, I guess, Seth, if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool stuff. All right, well, why don't you show us kind of whatever you feel like showing? Give us some goodies,
I
because you have some goodies.
lot of goodies. Like Matt said, I collect a lot. I've collected Guardians of the Galaxy. I have a pretty big set of that. Black Diamond, Black Panther. Did a lot of WandaVision, and a lot of Spider-Man metal, I think. And I sent a lot of it home because I wanted to put it in my PC. Wasn't my intention at first, actually. My intention was to trade it for Black Diamond, but then I just started amassing this big collection, so keeping it now. But I guess this is a good one. Let's see, camera here.
My lord,
Yeah, that's one of the nice ones.
that is one of the
AF
Amazing Fantasy 15 cuts.
15.
Wow,
Yeah, one of
there
the
were only
cuts.
15 of them in the set.
Yes. So I pulled it. Didn't realize it at first. That happens a lot. I pull something and I'm looking for like a green PMG, and I'm like, oh, what is this? And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what that is. In fact, one of my friends pulled it, and they didn't even realize that how good it was. They thought it was just a random cut, and they were going to trade it for a couple red PMGs. I was like, no, 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 don't do it, don't do it. So that's a valuable one because he wasn't into the cuts. So now he's still got a hold of his, I think, on Impact, but I let him know, and told him, I said, I'll trade you some red PMGs, but I will be taking advantage of you. And he's like, okay, so he kept it. So
It's
that's a good one.
good to
I know.
actually know someone who can tell you that stuff.
Yeah, it was a nice card, but I didn't want anybody to take advantage of them. Um, and I know there's some people who have been collecting them and definitely some interest in them.
Yeah, it's one of those that it's a couple people who've got Spidey Hits, who's got a big YouTube channel. He had one as well. So I think at this point, a lot of people are aware of comic cuts because of that cut and that release. I
Mm-hmm.
think I feel like I can safely say until then, most people I don't think got comic cuts. I think a lot of people still don't quite get it, but when you get one from an issue that's that important, people sit up and take notice for
Well,
sure.
I know back in 80th, you were doing a lot of cuts, and I did a lot of cuts. Um, so and I love them, especially if it's a character that you enjoy and a comic. For me, a comic book that you uh, read when you were growing up, and to be able to see that in a card um, is exciting for me.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, 80th in particular, you know, uh, all of the different comic cuts have different windows for the cut. I liked 80th, just an example. I just happen to have this one sitting here. You get a nice big image there. I mean, using AF-15, for example, that one obviously has a smaller window, but at the same time, when it could probably be, a couple centimeters by a couple centimeters, and it would still be a massively important piece of comic history. So, um, but of all of them, I still think the gold standard is the Avengers Silver Age cuts,
Okay,
which
I did not do any of those.
in terms of just surface area, I mean, actually I
It
can
was
put it down
large.
here, can't I? There you
That
go.
that was a Rittenhouse set, right?
Yep, that was.
They do similar layouts for. I've seen some for the Star Trek um,
Yep.
ones too, so they have that similar image. And I think what's important when you do a cut is whoever's picking the cuts actually picks something that makes sense.
Yes.
Instead of just a random piece, which I've seen. Like, and I have one of them. Like, I have a crop shot of like from the New Mutants '98, and I just got it because I thought it was fun. Hold on one second, Matt.
Sure, no problem.
I got people walking in the business. Hi, how you
Yep.
doing, sir?
How you
Hey,
doing?
how you
Do
doing?
you
I mean,
do
what's
VO for your
We do. Let me hold on, Matt. Like
no problem.
business stuff.
Yeah, I'll mute this and you just give me a wave when you come back. All right. It's the problem of doing a broadcast from your office. If people come in and want some info on your business, you got to talk to them. Yeah. So as I was saying, with the comic cuts, I could do a whole series on comic cuts as well. But you can definitely tell when the person who was responsible for who got the comic and was doing the cuts, you can tell whether they were a fan or whether they were just there until 5 o'clock and wanted to get the heck out of there. I've seen some phenomenally framed cuts, and I've seen some to Seth's point, you would almost think they were totally random. So I'll just jump ahead to the next sketch while we're here. So I believe this is Blue Marvel. He's a character I'm not super familiar with because I'm not up to date on most books except the X books and oddly enough, Incredible Hulk. I've really enjoyed that book. So this is Blue Marvel, hopefully, by Aries Mello as the artist. This is also the first time I had encountered Aries as an artist. I have no idea. The Mello I am familiar with is Adriana Mello. I have no idea if they are related. It could be a super common name. I just don't know. Oh, all right. Looks like Seth's back, so we'll unmute there.
Like you said, business people coming in for their little kids come try karate class. So
That's awesome.
Stuff. Yeah, just hang out and play with cards more often and get more business.
We're just going over this one. This was the first time I had ever heard of this artist, Aries Mello. Really like the style. Really nice use of white. This is sometimes, some people may think this is sacrilege, but whenever I see white like this, I have to go like this and sort of feel. So yes, I can feel that that's not that he just painted or did around that and left the white
The
on the card.
recess.
That's actually like some sort of a white marker, I guess, that's
Okay.
used to sort of do that after. So you can definitely, again, the black's all nice and smooth, but I can definitely feel the slightly raised here on the
You can
white.
use
So
you can use gouache sometimes. A lot of white, I use gel pens actually over the black, and that works nice for me.
and again, for a non-artist like me, this is always cool to hear sort of how the sausage is made. All right, let's take some turns. What else?
Okay, all right. I pull some stuff out. This is what I thought. This is a one-of-one spider Z-Force. Oops, dropping cards. That's bad. Um,
And maybe if you tilt it just like 10 degrees towards me. SPD.
let's see. I'll take it out of the plastic
The
and
team
keep it
bag.
in the top loader. See if that's better.
A little good, but definitely better. SPD. So that's a 101.
Well, this is a one-of-one. Uh, it's the only one-of-one I actually got from EPAC.
All right.
So EPAC, it's been a good bit. Well, tons of cases. I've got a few PMGs, some green ones, some red ones, but one-of-ones didn't get any purples. But that's the only one-of-one I actually got with Spider-Man Metal off of EPAC. But I did get a really good one, which you know
The
about.
physical. Yep.
Yes, physical on Memorial Day, which was exciting.
Definitely saw that post, and I think everyone's reaction was essentially whatever emoji this is.
Yes, for sure. And I brought that too. I'll show that one in a bit.
Oh, beautiful. All right. Well, again, sorry for David Hindelang to have to follow that card, but here's a quick little Mysterio he did. And I'm a fan of when people do little, geometric shapes like that, just to add a little dimensionality to the card. And some people, I've actually heard at least one person say, "Oh, but all the extra white space." I don't know about that, right? I think if you can capture the essence of a character like that and with that spotlight effect, I think it really makes that stand out, actually. And I think the white around it really is a nice touch.
I think
Me personally.
I've done it for sure. It is a time-saving technique. Absolutely. Like when, at least for me, when you're running out of time and you're like, okay, but it still looks nice. I know Mitch Ballard does it a lot as well. And it's a nice formula. It presents well. So I think it's definitely a good option, but definitely takes less time than when you're doing the background and that. And a lot of times, you have to produce quality cards in a short amount of time, figure out what's the best way to do that. And that does eliminate some. So I do like them as well. But it's definitely, I think for artists, definitely a time-saving technique for sure.
So I could go back to like high school geometry, where we could figure out, okay, what's the radius, figure out the surface area of the circle, and figure out how much was saved.
Right.
Do a little percentage calculation. All right, let's go. What other goodies you got for us?
What else I got in here? Oh, this one's good.
Something tells me that quiet little "this looks good" is gonna impress us. This little thing.
This little guy. Let's get it out of the bag though. Like I said, a lot of this just came from EPAC because I was bringing it home to put in my collection. This one here is a gold Planet Metal out of 25, I believe.
I was really impressed with those. I think the first time I saw them was the X-Men metal set.
Yes.
And just the weight and the feel of one of those in hand. Like I think you could tell they were nice on EPACs, but once I got it shipped home and had it in hand, like, oh my God, those are just so nice.
I think that's for a lot of cards. Like I had some of the Plexi cards sent home from WandaVision. And I'm thinking, oh, it's just a thin Plexi card, not much to it. But I really like them. And I think that it happens a lot on EPAC. You see these cards and they look cool, but it's not quite the same as when you send them home and you're like, oh, these are really, really nice. And I like the weight of the metal, like you said. I think it's really different when you have them in hand. You can see how
The
nice
the only thing, the only negative I had on them, and if anybody who eventually sees this wants to give me some suggestions, is I've definitely been moving towards. I don't have one handy, but I've been finally getting a lot of my sets into binders. And those are so heavy that I would be terrified to try to put them in a typical 9-pager, obviously. So um, I was thinking maybe a more sort of prefabricated book that has the built-in pages. Maybe that would help, and maybe you only put a couple per 9-page. But that's the only downside I can think of with that hefty metal weight. So, now, how do you actually store your stuff?
Not well. A lot of times there's boxes all over the place. Uh, right now,
Really?
yeah. My whole house, like I said, I have a collection of everything. So I have one room. Well, not one room. I have lots of rooms with stuff. My one bedroom, one spare bedroom has boxes of cards all over the place. I've just started reorganizing stuff. My basement, same thing. Cards are down there. But currently, my dresser has a bunch of cards just laid up, kind of like your background right there.
Yeah.
And now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to store them at all the nice ones, the ones I really care about, in one touches, and putting them in Zion cases and storing them that way. So I've been working on a red black diamond set, red parallel, and putting those all in. I'm putting my base set. I have a full base set, the exquisite set, the high base, and putting them all in one touches and storing them in the Zion carry-on cases.
Now, when I think back, I remember you mentioned Black Diamond, you mentioned Guardians, you mentioned WandaVision. Do
Yes,
you tend to gravitate more towards the MCU stuff, and Spider-Man Metal's the exception, or
I
just
do. I do. I definitely gravitate towards the MCU. Like I said, the Spider-Man metal was just kind of like an accident, and obsessiveness, just buying more and more and wanting the hits, and kind of like I play blackjack a lot too. So blackjack, eat back, is same thing.
probably a lot of similarities? Yeah.
Right. Pulling the slot machine, seeing what you get. So then I just kept going and going and going. And then, like, so my intention was actually to trade it for Black Diamond, but then I was like, I already spent so much. I'm just going to keep this set as it is and do it.
Very nice. All right, jumping back to a sketch. So this is another artist who I only discovered on this set, Ed Bilas or Billis. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. And this is only my second sketch in my collection of Mr. Spider Punk, who's an interesting character to say the least. I've been sort of going down a bit of a rabbit hole, looking at sort of alternate versions of characters, and to the point where the other day I discovered the whole Marvel mashup with the Cars universe, where it was there's a Peter Parker car version and all this other ridiculousness. I think like Uncle Ben's, Uncle Mercedes Benz or something silly like that, where they're all just basically vehicles. And
Well,
yeah,
I think
it's
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was going to say it's funny too, because as an artist, you don't want to draw the same Spider-Man all the time. So what I do is I'll go back and I'll go Google variants of Wolverine, because I don't want Wolverine and Jim Lee costume, which Jim Lee is probably one of my favorite comic book artists too. But everybody's seen that one, so I want to do a variation of Wolverine or a variation of Thor. Like I think for the Avengers set, I did couple variations. I did a lizard Thor. I did or dinosaur Thor. He was Dino Thor. On the set, and then I did another one of ice frost giant Thor. So like the variations are cool. I think makes it interesting and to research, and it's pretty funny. seen some of the things that
And no issues. Again, we talked a little about this offline. No issues as far as approvals for variants.
No, not really. I mean, there's some that might not be appropriate and that kind of thing. But for the most part, no, they're okay with you doing offshoots of characters as long as they're in the Marvel universe. So, like, yeah, I haven't had any. I wouldn't say any problems doing as long as it's I don't think I could do like a Spider-Man. You said there was a Spider-Man like car Peter Parker car variant. I don't think I could do that one. That one probably wouldn't make the cut. But most of the variants that I've done, I haven't had any problem with it. Usually when I'm doing my sketch cards, there might be one or two that come back, which I'm not even exactly sure why sometimes, but most of them get approved.
Gotcha. And then they supposedly destroy those, right?
Supposedly.
In Upper Deck's defense, so I can definitely comfortably say on camera, I know with 100% certainty that Cryptozoic did not destroy sketch cards.
Right. I was gonna just say, what happened with Cryptozoic, and who knows, Rittenhouse. I can tell you a story with Rittenhouse when some Marvel cards. I did 5 really horrible cards, and I knew they were horrible, and I emailed them. I'm like, hey, if we have time, can you send me 5 more cards so I can like redo these 5 cards and just don't use these 5 that look like a kindergartner drum. And they're like, oh yeah, okay. So I did the 5 cards, and then sure enough, they showed up in the set. So now I know if I don't want a card used, I got to put it like a big X right across it and send it in, because you're supposed to send in all the supplies that you've used, and even your artist proofs. If they're not approved, you're supposed to send them in too to be destroyed.
Which anyone who searches eBay these days knows that doesn't happen, right?
Oh yeah, I've been hit up multiple times for my blank artist proofs and such, and they, like I said, they sit in my drawer because I'll do them when I feel like it. I'm working on some, not artist proofs, just for me. I'm doing some like character actor likenesses on the Rittenhouse artist proofs, because I like doing those actually probably better than the Marvel cards, the ones that I was able to do for Cryptozoic, since you brought that up.
Nice. I'll throw in one more sketch here real quick. Unfortunately, with this light, that won't work. What if I do? No, where's the light? There's the light. If I take the light off, it's a little better, I guess, if I cover it. So this is a puzzle from Mayo and Bread, aka Jason Keith Phillips. A couple interesting characters here. I'm going to have to, in fact, go back to my files to figure out who these 4 were. I know we've got Ace on the end, and I know that's Kangaroo.
I don't know any of these
characters. The other 2 are, the first one's Enigma, and this one is Bombshell. So one of the things I did when I was doing these APs is I always try to get mutants, and I try to get mutants I haven't had before. And then in addition, I really try to find mutants who are at least tied to the stock. So in this case, I wanted mutants who had appeared in Spider books. So that added an extra layer of research to the whole process. But these 4 have all appeared in, Spider adversaries at one point or another. So fun little project there. Why don't we see what other goodies you've got for us?
All right, since you said Spider-Punk.
There we go. All right.
Here's a green PMG Spider-Punk.
Green and the red really just complement each other really nicely there.
Nice. What number? I don't have my glasses on. I think this is 2 out of 10.
Not too
One
shabby.
Of the greens that I picked up from the cases on ePack. That was a good one.
I think Brittany's comment was about the Jason Phillips sketch card, but if not, it also applies to that green PMG.
I'm going to go with it's the sketch card.
What I like about the Spider-Man, and this is only a minor dig at X-Men Metal, but I think the improvement in the PMGs between the X-Men set and the Spider-Man set was night and day. They did such a better job on the Spider-Man red and green PMGs. So
I did a little bit of the X-Men. I collect New Mutants, so I got a lot of those. I think I got one green PMG of Wolfsbane is the one I pick up. That's a main character I like. But yeah, I definitely think there's a bit of a difference. Even just the Spider-Man one seemed more vibrant for sure. Just looking at that one and the Spider-Man ones.
Now, do you have any? I don't want to say the word crazy. Let's call it aggressive goals to like get a full set of either red or greens, or do you only
For,
focus
for
on
Spider-Man,
characters?
yeah. For I think I'm about. I think I have 70 of the low series and 70 of the high series. I think, and it's on EPAC. But I'm, I'm I've been focusing. Well, this week or like last week, I've been focusing on Z Force. For out of the 100, I need like one to finish that. I have a good bit of the out of 62. I don't think I'll do the out of 25, and I'll probably stop at the out of 62 for Z Force. And then once I do that, then I'll start looking at the red PNGs, and they dropped a whole lot in prices. So that's what made me go back and like, you know what, like okay, I can finish this, and because the hype when the set first came out, they were so high, and now like I'm like, oh, okay, some of the lower tier characters aren't that bad at all. So I'll probably end
Yeah,
up getting a full set
I
of
mean there were
red.
there were definitely one or two people who were chasing that. I think the Alpha Cards guy. I think they completed it and
Mhm.
got the full green set, and
Got a full green set.
I believe so. Yeah,
Cool. That's
I
that's
know, right?
that's impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
uh,
not going there. Like no,
yeah.
this is my few that I have.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely some people went very aggressive on those, and seeing a bunch of them together, it's staggering.
That is quite a feat. That is quite a feat for sure.
Got a pair here from artist Leon Brajos, who also was on the some of the Cryptozoic sets as well. We get Beetle and Rhino. One of the other things I'm doing, it's funny how we each sort of have our own goals within goals, right? And one of I sort of have two, one of which I've walked back from a little bit, which was I wanted to have a sketch card of every mutant. But then I did my homework, and there were something like close to over 2,000 of them, right? With some that like appeared and died in the same issue, right? Or were just one issue sort of villains or minor side stories. So I'm still going for as many mutants as I can, but I have abandoned the concept of getting one of each. Plus, every month they introduce new ones, so it would just
Never is.
be an impossible goal. So, but another thing I am trying to do as a result of that is I'm like, well, you know what? How about I just try to get one of every character that I can too? Not trying to get obviously every character, because every Marvel character would be even more insane than the subset of mutants. But anytime I see one I don't have, like Beetle, for example, if it's a reasonable price, I'm like, hey, it's one more on my list. Why not? So just a fun or obsessive, I guess, depending on your perspective,
I
way to collect.
I think everybody collects is obsessive. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
at some
yeah,
point
yeah.
or another.
I think that's something all of us collectors, to your point, it's all a matter of degrees, but I think
Right.
we all have that somewhere. So, all right, you're up. What do you got for us?
All right. Go with this one. It says I haven't even opened
Oh, it
this.
still has the EPAC packing
It's
tag
got
on it too,
feedback
right?
stuff on it, everything. So
I'll say for all the problems they have technically, I've never had a problem with the packing of the cards that have been shipped to me, right? Even when I ask for them to be put in top loaders, it feels like they're either really good at it or they take their time. I've never seen personally like any lower damaged corners. Like I suppose if they were rushing to shove it in, they could, but they
I would
always seem
agree
like
with
they.
you.
So
Yeah, I've had nothing but good experiences having shipped to me, so I've been really happy with EPAC in general and all the shipping and the cards. But anyway, this one, this is so hard to see. Um,
oh,
so it's a platinum portrait Spider Man.
even even on the camera, so I've seen some of those in person. Even on camera, that doesn't do it justice. I know,
Yeah,
right? 'Cause
it really doesn't. You got to really see it in person and the way the light hits it. It's really nice. I actually ended up with two of these. I think I have another one on EPAC at this point. But yeah, I wasn't sure about them when I thought about them when the X-Men set came out, and that's I guess when I first saw them. I'm like, I don't know about that. But then once I had these at home and looked at it, I was like, you know what, I do like how they look, and um, I do enjoy them a lot. I think.
yeah, someone made an interesting observation slash joke about those. Now, do you grade at all?
No, I haven't. I've considered it. Uh, I I don't know. I don't like to sell my cards or trade my card. I guess I do try. I've traded some cards with you recently, but I don't really like to sell my cards or trade. I have a hard time getting rid of my collectibles. I just end up hoarding them a whole lot. Um, so the only value I see in grading them is if you're going to sell them. And right now, I'm not at any point where I'm going to sell any of my cards.
Yeah. No, I was playing around with some grading, so I got some random ones, like some that again they don't fit into my collection, so I've intended to sell, and I'm like, you know
Mhm.
what, I'll take the risk, I'll get it graded, I'll see if that changes the value any. But this was also a test because, so you mentioned you and I did some trading, you hooked me up in a huge way. I'm doing a character collection of Danny Moonstar. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be getting those all graded. But really, the grade isn't the point, right? It's twofold. It's the encapsulation and the protection.
Mhm.
But one thing CGC does, I'll turn it over even though it's not on this one. You can actually get what's called a pedigree on the back. So all of my Moonstar cards will have the Moonstar collection on the back. And it's
Okay,
funny. It's just three little words. But when
but
I
you can
learned about
personalize
that,
it.
yeah, exactly. You can make it whatever you want. So, and I was like, you know what? That's what I want to do with this specific character.
That's a cool way to store it.
Yeah.
My brother does sports cards, and he does grading, and he's not into non-sport. He was always into baseball and stuff like that when we were younger, and I was always into the comic books. So he grades a whole lot, and he's tried to. He said if I ever wanted to get it graded, he would take care of it and figure it all out. But not there yet. But it's kind of cool that you can personalize it and set it up
Yeah.
how you want. And that's just another way to store your collection. I think So I
Yeah.
think
And I mean,
that's good.
it's funny because obviously no one else, it's something I'm keeping. So no one else is really ever going to see it. And it's like an extra $5 per card just to get that silly word on the back. But you know what? It makes me happy
Like,
just thinking
right.
about it. So
And
maybe I'll get it in hand and I'll be like, oh my God, why did I do this? But who
it's
knows?
the obsessive thing again. You have them all the right way that you want it, and
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
Good Lord, I'm terrible at like trying to watch the camera and line them up here. So yeah, this is Liddy Lee. Liddy Lee definitely has been having her moment in the last few years
Yes.
in terms of popularity. Her name is right up there with some of the hottest ones out there. You got Perna, you got Ash, you got Malike, you got the Glebes, um, which I mean, this could be its own interesting topic, which I absolutely get. And don't get me wrong, I love Liddy Lee, but I'm always hesitant to do what I even just did, right? Which is to make a list like that. So I'm just going from what I know is sort of the quote
I,
unquote hot names, like the
I
ones you
think
always see get gobbled up. But I don't ever mean it as if you're not in this list, you know what I mean? You're not like
Right.
top. I mean,
I,
I think I love so many things about every individual card I have. So it's always hard to even. I always feel guilty even making a list like that.
and well, and it's as an artist, it's hard to say, you know, anything about other artists and be critical of other artists. I went to art school and we would literally tear each other's artwork apart. Be like, no, that's your job. You put your stuff up there, and everybody in your class like says that's messed up. That's messed up. You messed up that, and we literally that's how you get better. But I feel like you can't do that here. So like if there's some artists that I wasn't particular fond of or I thought had issues with this or that, and I mean of course people can pick out my card and be like, yeah, that's messed up or this is messed up, and I don't mind. But as an artist, I don't think I could do that. But as a collector, I definitely know which artists command more money. You know,
Yep.
so you have to be aware of that, and you have to be aware of the values because even though I'm not a sketch collector, in that kind of sense, like for the names that you mentioned, they're not ones that I would be interested in putting in my PC, but I definitely be interested in getting them because I know I could trade them for great cards to put in my PC
Right.
for other people who might enjoy them where I wouldn't. So
It is also interesting to me. I think Liddy. I think I first saw her in MM16. So I think she had a nice slow progression. And other artists, just come on in their first set. I think to anime, I think there was that artist Muddy Melly who, commanded, huge attention right off the bat.
yes,
Ash, pretty much right out the door, was getting a lot of attention. So it is interesting how some, will go like that, whereas others like Rich Henneman. Rich has been around for probably at least 10 years now in the sketch card world.
Mhm.
And it seems like he's finally getting the recognition he deserves with this set in particular, and some of the recent sets.
I do like Liddy's work. I will say that I do like Liddy's. Other artists that are popular that I like. I don't know how to say it. FX or
Oh yeah, FX.
I like his stuff. So those are two more popular artists that I do enjoy. Again, I'm sure I trade them for like Black Diamond cards or something like that. But I appreciate their artwork for sure.
I gotta get some more Black Diamond cards, right? I know what the
Yeah.
trade secret.
I mean, I've done APs for Black Diamond cards before, so that's definitely motivates me for sure.
Nate, I agree with you. Rich is fantastic. I actually don't have any of his from Metal and coming up, unfortunately, but definitely have got some of his going back to at least Bronze Age and Rittenhouse and a whole bunch from that time period. So, all right, your turn if you got something for a nice.
Oh yeah, I got a big box full of Spider-Man metal. That's for sure. Another green PMG. This one I like it just because color match with it's a Green Goblin, so green PMG, Green Goblin, kind of cool. All right, there's
Oh, that is nice.
that one.
The white highlight on the arm actually really works to sort of separate it from the green background, too,
Where's
right?
that? There you go. Yeah, for sure. The highlight right
I could see
here.
it being a disaster otherwise if it like totally blended in.
Right, and then it's the yellow. It's probably the camera. And then the highlight around the edge, for sure, like sets it apart. And so it's a nice looking card. I like that one. That's one of my favorite green PMGs that I have. So anyway,
Definitely a nice one. Wow. I'm putting up my tiny little sketch cards and you're flexing these massive cards. I love it.
No, it's all about what you like, right? So
Absolutely. So in my quest to get one of every mutant, sometimes I don't take good notes. So this is actually from the set. This is the second time you'll see this mutant guy, Ace. He was in the Jason Keith Phillips as well, because I forgot that I had commissioned that one. So I told Marco Carrillo I wanted one of this guy, Ace, who I remember from the 80s. He was in this it was either a one-shot issue. It might have even been one of the Spider-Man annual sets. He was basically this combination between Evil Knievel and sort of, at the time, I thought it was sort of Evil Knievel and Michael Jackson. So he sort of had that sort of
I can see it.
leather look to him. This quiet mutant with some fighting powers, but he's actually shown back up, I think,
Looks like
in the
Duran
last
Duran.
year or two as a recurring character. So
He reminds me
sort of
of.
interesting to see how 20 years later someone just shows back up.
Just appears.
All right, what you got?
All right, I got a Scream Green PMG, which was the first time I think she was in PMG card version of her. So let's see, pull it out. There you go. Green Scream PMG, which is cool.
You know, whoever thought up the whole symbiote backstory with Null and all these other symbiotes, I mean, just the excitement I have seen around them. It's just, I don't know the last time I've seen sort of that level of frenzy for new characters.
Well, and they're fun to draw too. So you can we talked about variants before. Like I did, there's the variant of Wolverine nullified or Captain America nullified or Daredevil. So that was cool as an artist to be able to change. I think I did Cyclops. I mean, it's a set that's not out yet, but the Cyclops nullified. So yeah, I love drawing the symbiotes, and then they're not that hard to draw either. So like a silhouette with guy with big teeth,
So interesting question. Now, when you would nullify someone for an official set, do you do the research to see that they were actually nullified in the books? Okay.
Yes, 100%. So I know Cyclops was, so I looked them up. And there's a couple. I think Storm was. I know obviously Wolverine was. He's on the set nullified for Spider-Man. But yeah, I definitely research it, look it up, and draw it accurate as it was portrayed in the comics.
I sort of wonder if anyone at UD would even have that level of research or the desire to research, or if they would look at it like if you did a venomized Boomerang.
And there was no right. And I
someone would be like, let's check this. Or would they be like, that's cool. It looks cool. Approved, right?
I don't know. That's a actually good question. That is, I mean, but
it sounds like something you need to test.
It
right?
just says draw
those boundaries.
Well, there was the one that I drew that just I think was disapproved just because of the background.
Really?
Yeah. So it was Spider-Man and Wolverine, and just I had them, and I don't know because you don't really ever hear, but I had them Wolverine and Spider-Man fighting from the issue when they fought in a graveyard from when I was a kid. But I don't think you're allowed to draw the graveyard. I think that was the issue. But it's not said anywhere. But that one was definitely not approved.
So, a little side conversation since we are talking sketch cards, and obviously I don't want you to trash your current employer, but
right.
I would imagine that's got to be frustrating, right? I'm sure on some level as an artist you understand rejections, but to me as a fan, to hear that you'll have cards rejected without any notice as to why, for a whole bunch of reasons. First of all, just common courtesy, right? And second of all, since you're not getting paid for it, it would be nice to know why. And more importantly, to have that information for future work to make sure you don't recreate the same error.
Right. It's definitely tough. And there's obvious rules of which you can't draw. For example, you can't draw, scantily clad women, too much cleavage, that kind of stuff. Where back in Rittenhouse days, you could get away with a little bit more. But that's an obvious thing. Okay, there's certain costumes where you got, even though they're drawn that way, you've got to add a little bit more coverage.
Like maybe Magic's costume with the big hole in the middle, for example.
Right. Although a lot of my Magic cards have been not approved. So like feel like the Dark Child version of Magic might not be allowed right now.
Oh,
I don't know if that's in the a lot of. I think I should read my contract more at the time. And maybe I didn't read that in the contract. I don't know. But a lot of the Magic Dark Child versions, or all of them that I did the last couple sets, have not been allowed, and I think that's because too much skin is showing. Uh, one of the I forget the character's name, but it's one of the Imperial Guard costumes of one of the females is pretty shows a lot. I forget which one it is, but I've drawn her a couple times and it's never made it through. But those are obvious. You're like, okay, I get it. They're not. But when it's something that's not so obvious, when you're drawing like a Spider-Man, Wolverine, and you can draw a Spider-Man and Wolverine just like you would on any card, and then have that rejected. That's tough. And then you're supposed to send it in and then have it destroyed after you spent. It's an artist proof, so in my artist proofs, I spend a lot of time on my cards. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. So so yeah, it's tough. That's one of the reasons why I don't do a lot of the artist proofs in general, is because you have to go through that whole process. And I started thinking about um, doing artist proofs ahead of time and doing them with my regular pack inserted cards like we do with other sets. And then I have a tendency, if I'm doing a set, I'll have more inclination to go ahead and do some artist proof if they're due at the same time as the regular pack inserted cards. So I decided, I'll try to do a couple. But then when they got disapproved, I was like, I'm not going to do any more artist proofs like that. So it's tough sometimes.
I mean, it is interesting because clearly the way you're describing it, it goes back to what you said at the beginning. Like you do this pretty much for the fun,
Right.
And knowing what they pay per pack inserted card. Clearly, you're not in it to become rich, right?
No, you don't make
Be
a whole lot.
honest.
No,
No.
and the artists that do, because I know there's some that do it, for a living. That's awesome, but it is tough, and the money comes from the artist proof, from the work that you're getting, not the packets or cards. Although we'll say I do believe Upper Deck has started to increase some of the payments for the artists. I'm fairly certain, that's happened for a lot of artists. But I think they've cut down on their artist pool in general. I can't say for sure. I don't know the ins and outs. Obviously, it's just an impression that I get.
Everything we've seen on the sketch side seems to indicate that yes, they're cutting back on both the number of artists they use and the number of sketches. Sketches these days are case hits at best. I've got a feeling whenever they finally do announce Masterpieces 22, assuming it's going to be 22, if not 23, we're going to find
I'll
out
talk to you about that one later.
I suspect they're not going to be a sketch per box like they were in the past. And I've got a feeling that only Marvel Premiere will stick to the sketch per box, since that's the whole theme of the set. So, but even then, they may change it. Who knows? God only knows.
Yeah. We'll talk to you about that later.
Couple quick ones here. So we've got Mary Jane, Matthew Lopez. Matthew does some really great work. And again, to me, this is just a nice, clean, simple sketch, right? There's any time where it's someone who doesn't like Moral Forge's Boomerang, right? Okay, you've got the clues here to who this is, right? Even if you didn't know, right? It's okay. Boomerang. What could his name be? Boomerang. But I like when it's one like this where it's just it's simple. Immediately who the character is without any sort of paraphernalia. Just a nice, well drawn one, and even maybe it's hard to see. Even just the slight color around the neck and the shoulders.
Yep.
I think it really helps separate the black of the shirt there. And again, it's not it's not going to be $1,000 sketch. It's not an Ash Gonzalez, super hyper realistic face. But I think this is a fantastic sketch card.
I think are they both the same artist?
No. So I'll jump. This is Mauro Fodra. This is
Right.
Matthew Lopez.
Okay.
I threw him up as example, although I'll piggyback on Mary Jane. So this is also Mauro Fodra. So these two are by the same artist.
Okay.
And I thought this was a nice sort of contrast to see. He can do the sort of the nice, straight, clean human guy kind of boring costume. Let's be honest. But I really like this rendition of Hobgoblin too. It's got it's not sort of the 80s one we grew up with where it was the mask. This is that one where Norman has actually changed. So
The actual Hobgoblin.
Yeah. Fun stuff. Yeah, Morrow's fantastic. He's been around forever.
He's been around, yeah, I was going to say, I remember him from the Rittenhouse sets.
Yep. He might have even been trying to think if he was before that. I don't know if he was. I don't think he did Masterpieces 7 or 8. I would have to look to see if he was in like either the beginnings or the now sets, but he certainly could have been. All right, what's the next little treat you got for us?
Continue with some green PMGs.
All right.
So, Superior Spider-Man.
Oh,
I like the shot for sure, the action shot. I think that's really cool.
So he's a character that, again, I didn't get back into the Spider books when I got back into comics. I kind of stuck with the X books for the most part, but having seen some of those cards, I've poked back to some of those stories just to see that whole thing. And, I'm slowly going back to a lot of the Spider books to sort of hear what's going on figure out what went on with those things, like the clone stuff. Like I sort of missed Miles when he was introduced because I wasn't reading those books. So I'm slowly working my way back and catching up on some of those. The problem is you miss 20 years and
you don't know what's, yeah. I
need to dedicate a lot of time to catch up.
I could tell you what happened in the 80s, early 90s. And
exactly.
Then I'm drawing the comic books, but I'm not necessarily reading all the comic books and seeing what's going on. So I had these new characters and stories. Like I have no idea unless I look on Wikipedia. And then I'd buy comic books to look at the art, but not necessarily following the stories anymore. So yeah, I completely get it. I'm right there with you. And I have to do research to figure out what happened with the different characters.
I would say up to if you want to know about late, say 78 to 89, I can help you there.
Yeah.
But pretty much from 90 to 2015, no, I got a 25-year gap in there, right? And then I slowly picked up right around 2015 and working my way forward and a tiny bit back. But yeah, that Superior is a fantastic piece. These two, again, someone else from Crypto, you might remember his name. This is Mike James.
Yes.
So Mike,
he doesn't do a lot of Marvel sets.
No. So when I heard he was on work, yeah. So needless to say, because I had gotten some APs from him on Crypto, as soon as I saw his name on a list, I was like, hitting that keyboard.
Hey, I'm ready to get some of your APs. And it's interesting because he'll from I don't know if I'm misspeaking or not, but I remember him reading somewhere him saying something that he wasn't as comfortable with drawing the superheroes. And so that's why he didn't do a whole lot. But I think what he's done with what he's comfortable with, like more realistic and then changing it, similar to what a lot of like Ash or what Fred Ian does and that type of thing, and adapting it to his style is awesome, and just the background and the
well, that's it. These two couldn't be more different either, right? I mean, this is what the Black Cat is what I sort of would have expected from him, a really well done face, just a great character portrait, because that's what I know him for. The Spider-Man blew me away. Just because of, it's got the tight colors and really nice rendering on the body. And then the background, it's probably one of the nicest backgrounds of any card I have. The time he put into that. And again, I'm sure, I don't know if there's a word for this other than outline, but just that tiny, tiny little blue outline to sort of pull him into the foreground.
Yeah, they're beautiful cards, and like it was cool to see that he was doing that. Hopefully, he does more. I think there's a lot of artists out there, and from I guess the more realistic sets, like I'd like to see what David would do, with a Marvel card,
Yep.
and like because I know he could do it, okay, take uh, uh, again similar to what a lot of the artists are doing, take a model and basically put a superhero costume on him, and then work his colors and the way he does stuff. I think the people, a lot of people in Marvel might not know who he is, but um, if he was on these card sets, I think people would be blown away.
Yeah.
It'd be a whole other
I
market
mean,
for him.
and that's when especially when you get someone else who can do that level detail, like Angel Avalace. I wish I
Right.
had one of his cards,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I mean, yeah, and just so many. I mean, God, I could spend 10 minutes going over all the artists from the Middle Earth sets. Like I'd love to see Andy Fry do some
Yeah.
portraits,
Absolutely.
but the problem is he doesn't do full. Well, does he do full color? Actually, he does some color, but he obviously tends to prefer pencil. So,
Right.
uh, but yeah, that could be a whole episode on let's recruit
Let's
people
bring
to
those
Marvel.
artists over to the Marvel side. I think
Exactly.
people. I truly think people will be blown away with a lot of those artists. Let's see.
Yeah. No, at some point I have to. I mean, this isn't the way I set this up. Is my focus is Marvel because I think that's where most people on social media know me from. But I have so much on. In fact, I just yesterday opened a box of this that I was
Okay.
able to find in the wild. So I could definitely stand to do some episodes on Middle Earth. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yes, that definitely was. They were fun sets. Just because we're talking about it, I loved working for Cryptozoic. Because you were able to draw actor likenesses. Um, and I wish that Upper Deck. I don't know. I don't know how they would do it, but what had the ability for us to draw actor likenesses for the MCU sets, I think that would be just phenomenal. But we don't.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I just from my own experience with uh, a Disney license, my guess would be that Warner Brothers had much more leverage when they were doing the movies and they were able to control the actor likenesses, whereas on the Marvel movies,
they
the
never,
actors maintained all the rights.
they can't do it.
Because there were only a few back in the day that you couldn't draw without approval on Middle Earth. I remember Christopher Lee was one of them.
Right.
Um, there were one or two others, maybe Martin Freeman. Um,
But
but that
now,
was
now you can, or at least the most recent set, you could, you could.
yes,
There was
yeah.
no restrictions
Now
on
that
any of
Christopher Lee's passed, I think his estate has released that restriction.
it.
So
So anyway, all
all
right,
right,
we'll go
well,
on to like my biggest card that I just got on Memorial Day. Uh,
nice.
so this one was funny. So I decided on Memorial Day I wanted to have some fun. So and I saw the prices had gone down for Spider-Man Metal. Still high, but I don't think it was less than what I was paying on EPAC when I was buying a ton. So I decided I'd buy a case. I opened up the first case, and then I got like a Aunt May green or not green, red PMG. And I was like, oh, that's good. And I was like, oh, it's not gonna be that big a deal. So then my second box, which I should have stopped after my second box, just sold others because I got nothing really good after that. But my second box, I'm opening it up and I get a Z Force Spider Man, and I'm thinking, oh, that's a nice card. That's probably one out of the 100. So I went out still looking for the green PMGs, and I didn't finish the box. I'm like, well, maybe I should look and actually see what it's numbered as, and it was the one of one. So I was like, oh, when I started shaking and running upstairs, grabbing like the sleeve, trying to find something to put it in. Then, of course, calling my friends, and they're like, "What are you talking about? It's a card." And like, they have no idea. It's like, you don't understand. You don't understand. What, it's a card? What are you gonna get? Like $5? I was like, no, it's way more than that. And I told them how much. Like I had it on eBay for it. They're like, no. Even now, like when I'm like, yes, it's a very expensive card. They're like, I don't understand. I was just talking to somebody else about it today. But so it's pretty funny. But anyway, so it's the Z-Force 101 Spider-Man.
I
So
mean,
uh,
to me, that's absolutely got to be one of the absolute biggest hit cards in the set. I mean,
I think so. I think I there's the like I thought about it. There's the purple one of ones. So there's the so what there was four purple one of ones of Spider-Man, I guess, right? So there's two low base and two high base. But there's only one of one Z-Force Spider-Man. So it's pretty unique, I think. And I've definitely got some offers for it. And like I said, for right now, I'm keeping it. But I've had some pretty really nice offers, and especially people know what I like to for trade offers, that kind of stuff from friends. But after spending so much money, and then I have the AF-15, I'm like, you know what? I have a pretty nice Spider-Man metal collection, so keeping it in the PC for now, unless it gets really crazy. But we'll see. We'll see.
maybe if somebody like starts waving like Sienkiewicz covers at you, maybe that'll get your attention,
Right,
right?
that'd be good. That'd be good to put another one on my wall. Um, so huge fan, and because you bring that up, I have the original um, painting from New Mutants 22, which was probably my favorite comic book, and that artwork, very Disney esque image. And we talked about recreations. I did recreation of that cover, which I've never seen like in anybody's collection. And if anybody does have it, um, yeah, I think it was the first time for Z Force in any Marvel set. True Blue. Uh, so I did that recreation. Never seen it, and I've been looking for it ever since. And I spent like 3 months doing that card, that recreation.
That is a hard card to follow right there. Would you say that's your biggest card you ever pulled?
100%. It's got to be. I pulled some nice cards, but nothing anywhere near what the offers that I'm getting for this card. Yeah, I put the AF-15 was nice. I have some nice black diamond, but nothing that could even come close to that one for sure.
Yeah, I think in metal, I think I didn't go deep, and I got lucky. I pulled a green. I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was someone like Lizard or Doc Ock. It was a pretty significant character. And yeah, the offers came in fast and hard, and I was like, you know what? That's a lot of sketch cards. So
So well, that's awesome, and you got exactly what you wanted. You can spend it on
exactly.
what you want.
As you were saying earlier, so I've got three Mitch Ballards here. So this is the first one, and like you say, the circle definitely is a way to sort of cut back on the surface area. But I mean, again, look at how Mitch handles this. So we do have the circle. We've got, though it's used with this dimensionality, right? So you've got sort of popping out of the circle with the webs, with the hands and the knees crossing over. I mean, to me, if you're going to do a circle, that's sort of how you do it, right?
I
Use it sort of as a framing reference and
I,
play with
I
that.
agree. I think Mitch, along with the inking that I really enjoy, the blacks that he lays down, his composition skills are great. And I believe he's one of the first artists that I saw doing this circle thing. And then I saw it and I did it some of my cards, so I'm copying Mitch. And I think a lot of people did that afterwards. But his skills for composition are really great if you look at some of his older stuff where he was doing more um, with the multiple faces and just the layouts and
Yeah.
from the older stuff around. It's really, really nice. In fact, I bought a couple Guardians of the Galaxies. I don't know what his first upper deck set was, but I noticed him on Guardians of the Galaxy, which I told you was one of the sets that I collected a lot of, and bought an AP for him, which I thought was a steal back then. They were $60 for an AP.
Oh wow.
So he was selling them on eBay, and I was like, oh, I should buy all three, but I just bought one. Oh, But yeah, I like his artwork a lot.
Yeah, no, I think I at least know he was in Bronze Age, which was 15, and I want to say he was in Marvel Universe, the 2014 set,
Okay.
doing some of those. But Mitch has been around for a while. And I wanted to show this one side by side that he did because they're almost polar opposites. So I love the compare and contrast, right? So you've got the circle here with the white space outside, and even within the circle, you've got the city backgrounds. Here, you've got the opposite. That's more like a spotlight with the white there, him popping out, and then you've got this whole galaxy background in the other space. So,
which he does. He does a lot of his cards, and I like the quality artists that have like a formula to it, and then they can produce nice cards in a quick manner. That look really nice, and that's one of the reasons I like Mitch's cards and like I like Andre Toma's cards because I feel like they can produce these nice quality cards, but it's kind of like a formula, and they all kind of go together. And that's something I envy because when I'm drawing cards, I don't have a set formula. I just kind of keep going and going and going, and they don't look. For me, like in my personal criticism, they don't look cohesive. But I think Mitch's cards and Andre's cards, if you put any of the cards next to each other, they look like they belong together. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, no, Nate, I agree. I mean, in both of these, right? You're sort of coming almost like from the real world into the frame of the viewer on the white one, whereas here, sort of popping out of the nothingness into the front. I love it. And again, it just within a set, just that variety that they play with. And I'll throw one more, Mitch, that I have from the set, just a totally different one, right? No circle, just a nice portrait, sort of going back to those sort of washed pastel colors that Mitch is known for. And again, when you look at this, I think the sign to me, the sign of a great artist is how you can do more with less. Like if you really look at what's done here, there's very little in the face. You've got just the two little lines and the eye indent, just a little color here with the white, and just some, really the only coloring is inside of the hood. But it's just that's a fully rendered piece right there.
Yep.
So absolutely love Mitch. Cannot say enough good things. I've gotten some APs from him as well, so absolutely love him. All right, I see some reds there.
There's some reds. I've got piles of reds.
When we spend some time, let's have you go through a few here. I'm down to my last two cards too. So.
Yeah, like I'm trying to figure what I want to show. I'll do two at a time, and then I'll do a couple Venoms, go with some reds. We'll go with these. All right. So a couple Spider-Man. First time out since BPAC. Got one of the Spider-Man red.
Yeah.
That one's fun. And then
now that one, the Ben Reilly one, is that right?
Yeah, that's from what I understand. I haven't done the research on that one, but from what I've heard, that's not actually the image of Spider-Man, but it's labeled as Spider-Man, I believe. There's another.
It's a nice one.
Red Spider-Man. Just since I have it out too. I'm not gonna take it too long. There's an orange version. FX orange version.
Is that the retail exclusive? Is that what that one was?
No, that was an EPAC as well.
Okay.
They did orange versions, which were out of 25.
Oh, geez.
So those were out of 25.
Now, is that one still technically a PMG?
No, they're the FX.
I
think they call it FX, like similar to like the purple. They did a turquoise, which was
yes.
50. And then the oranges were out of 25, and then I guess the next lowest ones were the purples.
Gotcha.
So now one of those. Another orange Spider-Man.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I like, out of all the Spider-Man, I like this image the best for the cards.
That is a nice one. I just realized I do have a few from Spider-Man Metal that are non-sketches that I can show.
All right, let's do it.
So I basically, again, after I sold the green, it all just was sort of sitting there. And then I was like, you know what? I should probably just, send the ones that might be worth something home. And I just find, for me, sometimes trading non-sketches for sketches on ePack sometimes is just an absolute nightmare. So I figured, you know what? I'm just going to send them home, and I can do it here. Oh God, that's horrible. Oh, there we go. That's a little better.
Yeah.
So this is just a regular
Z-Force.
regular Z-Force, not anything super numbered. But actually, wait, no, it is. I'm sorry. This is out of 99. I can't. I'm half blind.
I believe they're out of 99.
But it is numbered. But again, nothing fancy. But
Yeah.
I also used a lot of these as an excuse to play around, do my own sort of research on the card. I did guesses as to what I thought I'd get for a grade, so I wanted to get a feel for how good I was at the process. So again, nothing that's going to blow your mind here, but
all collections. I think you brought up trading on ePack. I think trading on ePack is very tough.
Yeah.
And I get offers a lot of time. For the longest time, I just hid everything. Because I didn't want to deal with anybody trying to make offers, and I don't want to upset people either. But ultimately it's my collection, I guess. But and because people get really upset if you disagree with their valuations or something like that. So I think it's really hard. Even if you have a list of your wish list, people offer you stuff that's not even on your wish list that you're not interested in. You say no, thank you, whatever. But people get upset. So as far as trading goes on ePack, it's very few people I'll trade with. People that I know or have had more dealings with, and do I feel comfortable will understand if I'm like, no, I'm just not interested, and I know they won't get all upset about it and that kind of stuff. So a lot of times I just decline the trades and don't do it because I think it's tough. It's definitely tough to trade on ePack, especially when you have a big collection and somebody's wants this super expensive card, but then they have 5 cards in their collection and they're offering you this is an exaggeration, but a digital based card, and you're like, you don't want to,
there are some where it just feels scammy, right?
and obviously I think I have like 70,000 cards on ePack, something like that, and obviously I think if you have that many cards, you have some idea of what you're doing or the value of cards. So how are you going to even try that?
Try to play dumb.
Yeah.
So I was just looking through these, so I think, and again, I could probably Google it and get the answer. So I actually have 2 raves. So it looks like you've got the regular rave, the Z-Force, which is numbered to 100. Mm-hmm. And then this one's the amazing rave variant, which is down to 62.
62. And then the one after that is 25, and then the one of ones.
And the 1 of 1. So that's interesting how they sort of do that.
And they look so similar. I think some of the design and the writing is slightly different, but that was the problem when I opened up my 1 of 1. I just thought it was like the out of 100 because it looks almost identical to the other ones, and then you flip it over and it says Super Rave or Amazing Rave or whatever it might say.
All right, what you got there?
All right, I got a couple more reds. Let's see, I got Venom Red.
Such a nice card.
I like that image a whole lot. Actually, I have 3 of these.
Nice. All right.
But I enjoy that image just because it comes from the time when I was reading comic books, and Todd McFarlane was definitely, I enjoyed his Spider-Man run. And then when they broke off to do Image Comics, of course, I was buying all those comics at that time. So that was cool.
Good old Todd.
Yeah. Then another low base red Venom.
So nice.
And then
I know who that is.
Yeah, Wolverine, old style, red.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm just gonna blow you away with my 1 red because
let's see it.
Let's see it. There you go, Madam Web, baby.
Nice.
And again, this is interesting. I suspected this would be a hard grade, the reds, and they definitely are. And I knew, like, you might not even be able to see it on the camera there, but there's definitely like a little chipping. But I was like, you know what, for $15, let me see what that chipping does as far as the grade. So even getting an 8, I was actually a little surprised and happy with that. So
All right. I don't know. I might be able
all right, I got let me show you my last 2 sketch cards, since this is a sketch focus show.
Yes.
So we've got this Iron Spider by Oliver Castaneda, who goes by Vistos, Viskratos. Really, he's another one who his work has definitely caught fire lately. People definitely really got an appreciation for his work, and his is definitely climbing up there in terms of just market value. And then ending with yet another circle one. This one's by Tim Shin, a little Gwen and Peter in Happier Days.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as sketches went for this set, I was pretty happy with them. I've seen a lot of really nice pulls, and overall, my impression is that people were happy with the sketches. I mean, they were a little hard to pull. I mean, they were definitely tougher. One of the first sets in a while that people are starting to realize how tough these pulls are. Same thing on Fleer Ultra Avengers. Feels like I've seen a little more pulled on Marvel Annual. I don't know if that's just coincidental or observation bias, but it seems like I feel like I'm seeing a little more on Annual than I did either on this or on Fleer Ultra. So
did you trade for all of these, or did you?
So a lot of them were APs, not these two. I think, how many were AP? Actually, it's not that many. A lot of them that weren't APs were just, I think only one I traded for, and the rest were just pickups. Either people posted them in group or on eBay, just sort of value shopping for some of these.
I do feel like before the show we talked about Allure. I bought 10 boxes, hobby boxes of Allure. I hit one sketch, but I felt like there wasn't a whole lot in there. But I know how many I did, and I imagine, I think in EPAC you might see higher odds for a sketch, I would imagine.
That would be interesting for sure.
Same for Avengers, because I've seen 1 or 2 sketches that I did for Avengers, but I know there's a ton out there that I did and were approved too. So I think it'll be interesting once it hits EPAC to see what the odds are or how many sketches are hit.
Yeah, I also think nobody really knows what percent goes to physical and what percent goes to EPAC. I mean, some people do the numbers, and there's probably a post out there that I just haven't seen where someone's done an estimate on it. But I mean, to me, just knowing what's on EPAC, it feels like it's got to be like 80-20 EPAC to me.
Mm-hmm.
And considering the margins they can get on them, they'd be kind of crazy not to, other than keeping their distributors happy. Just going to show a couple other random ones just because I happen to somehow luck out and get 10s on them.
Okay.
Just a Rhino out of 100 Z-Rave, and you'd mentioned it earlier, Turquoise of everyone's favorite Silvermane. So again, I think what I like about these is it seems like they solved some of the quality issues that plagued X-Men Metal, which was really, really nice to see. And again, I think I was very happy with the foiling, and I think of the inserts, I was most impressed with the Z-Rave for sure. Still like, Grandiose because of the effect. But that obviously was also in X-Men Metal, so it's not like it was new to this set. So
I do like the Grandiose, the way they look. I was trying to put together my achievement puzzle with 16 pieces, but I'm like, it's a little tough to put this puzzle together right now. But
is it one of the covers?
It's one of the covers, so I mean, there's no point in showing the individual pieces. I was going to try to put it together, but it's going to be a process. But that was fun.
What issue is it?
Issue 50. I mean, the artist, I believe, just passed away recently.
Is that John Romano?
Yeah, he did.
All right, just what I can do is do.
but
This.
it was good. Yes, that's the cover. It's cut it up into 16 pieces. There was for the achievement, there was 2 tiers. I have a second one too from the second tier, but the first tier was 5 comic books. Uh, I, I guess the number one to hit was AF-15, and I was the second one to pull, so I had a 1 in 4 chance of getting the AF-15 cover. I did get the person after me got the AF-15 cover, but this one was probably, I think, the second best cover, the number 50. So I was really happy.
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of those. I never owned that one, but that was, that's one that even as a kid, you'd see that issue. That was a
And
big
you knew
deal.
that cover. You knew that art.
Yeah, you'd see it. It was way up on the wall at the comic book store, right?
Yeah.
As a kid, I mean, that was an interesting marketing technique to me, because to me, at age 11 and 12, when I'm going in with my paper route money, that was like that was the goal, was to get something off of that row up there.
I would save my lunch money and go after school. I'd walk across the street to people's drugstore and go in the rack and buy the comic books with my lunch money. That's what I did.
I still remember the first quote unquote big comic I bought. It was a pretty beat up copy of X-Men #2.
Okay.
And at the time, it was $80.
Oh, so this was like an aftermarket comic book, the first one you bought.
Yeah. So it was one of those that was up on that row. So I had saved up for 2 weeks, and I went in, and I was so happy to be like, I want that X-Men.
The first comic I ever bought, went to a toy store looking for Star Wars figures at the time. I have a big collection of those too. But I bought a X-Men 193. I remember that one. Thunderbird on the cover, Wolverine. I think it was a double-sized issue. And I think Magneto's on it too. And then that's from then on. Then I was like, all right. And I just kept buying comic books. And obviously, like, a lot of my artwork is around the X-Men. And that's, I guess that's because that's the first comic book I ever bought. It was 193.
Oh, yes. All right. I just pulled it up. Wolverine. It was another John Romita Jr.
Yeah.
His work on there. Oh, my God. I mean, obviously, don't get me wrong. I loved Byrne's work with Claremont. But, I mean, JR was just...
It's so good. And that run from his run was... I made it nostalgia, but I just loved the stories. I love the Hellfire Club, that whole time period. But again, it could be just because, that was my youth, but I like them.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, same to me. And like, he was one of the first ones that's gone on Derpa. Thank you for coming. Derpa is so I clicked it.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Derpa.
I remember those, like he that was when they introduced Nimrod, I think.
Yes, Nimrod was there.
And, his run, and even more so than Byrne, his run on those, and even on Spider-Man, that was one of those where I would just take my time. Like some comics, even these days, I'm going to be honest, a lot of times I'm guilty of reading it and more for the story, and I'm glancing at the art, but I'm not really taking the time to appreciate each panel like I did when I was a kid. And his line hatching work as a kid, like, I would just get lost in those lines. I know that sounds silly, but I would get lost.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I can imagine, I can still visualize those comic books and the colors and what the cover looked like and all that. Like, I guess it was Nimrod with Rogue when she absorbed Nightcrawler's powers and she's kneeling there, like that, just all of that whole time period and getting those.
I remember he did one with cover with Celine. I remember her as the vampire. I mean, oh my God, we've completely pivoted to comic books now.
Comic books, right? At least it's comic book related.
Exactly. Nice. Anything else you want to show? Or, I mean, we've been here almost 2 hours. We can wrap up.
Nothing as exciting as the one-on-one that cover. So I think the rest are just some turquoise and nothing too thrilling. Still have only the turquoise. Only the turquoise. I still have a lot of greens on e-packs. There's a good bit. I don't want to send too much home because I am do get nervous, like when I get in the boxes and somebody using
Well,
the
you
stuff.
look behind me. I mean, I have definitely been trying to think about a combination of both conservation and preservation. Like I've done the scanning, I've done the sorting, but the problem is everything I own is within like a 20 square foot area. So like as I'm looking at the camera, there's a wall behind me and my oil burner's on the other side of that wall. And actually my neighbor's house burned down last year.
Oh my goodness.
And so, and I remember like, sitting here one night, I was down here and I hear a pounding at the door and I go up and it's a the fire department. They're like, you need to get out of your house now. And literally they're in a
There's
case
all
like
your
that.
cards. Yeah.
It's not even my house. It's next door. But we barely had time. Two of my daughters were both in the shower, like two different sides of the room. We had to go up. They're literally running in towels out into the car. We had to scoop up the dogs, and that's all you had time for. And it wasn't until I drove away that I'm like, I have no control over what happens next. If that spreads through the trees to my house,
all this is gone. That's one of my nightmares. Like I've thought about, okay, if I have to get out of the house really quick, what am I going to take?
Right.
Like because like I said, I have all these collections, and now what I did is in my bedroom I put a shelf and have one thing representing basically each kind of collection type thing. So if I need to get out of the house, just grab that one shelf and going. But there's so like I don't even tell you how much money is invested in all this collection if it just goes, and I'd have a handful of stuff. So,
I mean, on the Marvel Card Collectors podcast, they interviewed Alan, who was Mr. Fuxum. He's the guy who bought like the majority of Fuxum. And I remember him saying he basically had custom built little concrete vaults.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like stone or concrete.
And I really want to ask him about that because it may cost a lot, but as I think about what's behind me, it's like I might be an idiot not to do that.
To do it right, like some gigantic
buying
fire
sketches
safe
for
room.
3 or 4 months and protect what I have.
I definitely, all that has definitely crossed my mind for sure. With my house.
Yeah, I've got some of it on my mine as well, Derpa, but the problem is I don't trust a lot of these insurance because if anything happens, they're gonna nickel and dime you. Like, what's the actual replacement value? You'd get something certainly, and something is better than nothing, absolutely.
And so you don't want the items to be just gone. Like they're irreplaceable.
Yeah, I mean, you just had a one of one, right? I mean, if anything happens to that, there is no replacement that. And for me, mine are not all, but the vast majority of my collection is unique sketch cards. And
you can't replace those. You can't.
Yeah, that would be so. Wow, we just took a dark turn, huh? But it is something.
But I think it crosses a lot of people's minds who are collectors. How do you make sure things are safe? And that's one of the things why I started to thin out a lot of my collection. Like I sold a good bit of my Star Wars collection, selling other things, and even started selling some cards that aren't on my main ones, like the Spider-Man metal and my Black Diamond. I started selling some of the other cards on eBay just to thin out my collection, just because of that concern of like, well, what happens if something bad happens? So.
Yep. Well, on that lovely positive
but hopefully nothing bad happens, and we have big collections, and we can all
exactly. And we live forever, of course.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining me.
It's good talking to you, man.
Great. I mean, I've obviously been a fan of yours for years. I got to know you recently through the AP, so it's great to actually.
And I do want to say, for those who don't know, Matt supports the artists so well, and is always great for the hobby. And I guess I first met Matt through the Hobbit license, even though I had done some Marvel artwork before that. And he is always so supportive and great for the hobby. So more people like you, the better in any of this hobby. So We appreciate you, man. And
I
I'm
appreciate
sure all
that.
the artists
Thank you.
do too as well.
There you go. And Terpa, focus on the present. Enjoy it while I have it. That's right.
Yep.
Although I've heard a couple of people who swear they're going to get buried with them, so who knows? And there you go. Since I'm the worst marketer ever, yeah. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. At some point, I'm going to get like an intro and an outro, but all I'll say now is, Seth, again, thank you so much for joining
Thank
me.
you so
For
much,
the
man.
people who showed up, Derpa, Nate, Bethany, Brittany, Bethany, a friend of mine, sorry. Thank you, everybody, for stopping in and joining us in this chat, and I will see you guys all next time.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. The most awkward 5 seconds at the end.
Waiting.
Because I have to hit end broadcast the second time.